Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. It is a good day, an interesting day. So, welcome to Raging Verbalist. This is Raging Verbalist number 321. And today we have a kind of a special topic because this turns out to be the closest one prior to the anniversary, the birthday of my book, which, of course, most of you should already be thinking of owning, possessing, and having, and all of that. But we're going to talk about what I've learned about most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it, position to win. But before we do that, get a little housekeeping out of the way. I'm up on YouTube and Facebook. The Facebook group is Position to Win Book, Position to Win Book. Check it out. Also, the website is positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. Okay. So I've gotten, over these 6 years, I've gotten a series of questions and things. So I thought I would grab them and talk to them about it. And, yes, March 17th, 2020 is when we launched the book, my co-conspirator and I. And what a crazy day to do that because COVID was just exploding, and all of that. Boy, I wish I had spent a lot of more money on buying stocks when they crashed and burned. But oh well, c'est la vie. Here we are. So it is the sixth birthday of this or anniversary. I like to think of it as birthday because you got to really birth a book. It's a pain and all of that now continues to get some interest, but it also serves as a great calling card. I met with some venture capitalists last uh, trip I was on a couple of weeks ago and gave people copies of the book. And, the book has a tendency to elevate you to a certain level and do things. So, what have I learned over the past 6 years? Well, I've learned that if you actually write a book, a real book, by the way, and this has changed in the world of AI, but a real looking book, a real feeling book, all of that stuff. I mean, it's great to have a digital something and all that. And I know there are people turning out, and telling me, John, you could do an update in the book in mere seconds. There's a quality difference, and maybe that's the, downgrading of where things are at, or maybe it's a perfectionism in me or whatever that might be. But what I've learned is that it creates a certain distinction, creates a certain ask you, how did you do it? What happened? Where did it take place? More importantly, what I've learned is that the book has helped people. Hopefully, it's helped you out there who are, my viewers, and said, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistakes. We all make these mistakes. That's why this is universal. This is why most of them fail. All you have to do is look at how many times, especially when you see these, ominous, YouTube videos and business channels. Oh my God, this business is going through this. Well, the world is in a very dynamic state, to say the least, right now. And of course, that's one of the things I talk about. I talk about what happens out there in that world and what takes place. So I've learned a lot of things over those 6 years. One is to always carry a book. When I was promoting other authors, friends of mine, but also, just mere clients, I would always say to them, carry a book with you all the time. You never know when you're going to walk in, stumble in, meet somebody and say, hey, by the way, here's my book. And it definitely changes the tone and tenor and temperature of the room when you do that. Now, the question is what does the title mean? Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Now, was it done just for hyperbole, just for shock value, just for, hey, look at me kind of thing? And in some ways, I guess you could say that it's supposed to grab people, it's supposed to get them pulled in. But the thing about it is, first off, it was tested. I tested it at Freedom Fest in 2019 and discovered that I had it inverted because that was actually the subtitle was that the punchline was most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes, and turns out that everybody ignored everything else and saw that and looked at it and said, yeah, okay, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Tell me more. That's what we want to always hear, isn't it? So what happened is that really set something off, and some people disagree with it, and they say, "Well, yeah, what does that mean? How does that fit in?" So I'm going to try to explain it as succinctly as possible in the time that we have. See, when you're starting a business, any business, and you get this idea, whatever it is, you go, "Wow, bang! boom, explosion in your head, boom, explosion here. We start talking to people and we've got this thing that just won't let go and we're going to go with it. And there we go. However, what you need to stop and ask yourself is not, is this annoyance that you've run into important or significant or enough to get your brain going 25 different ways? But the real question is how do you deal with the reality that somebody already exists in that market? I once had somebody who was looking at a business opportunity that I was looking at. And he said, well, John, there's competition. Well, if there's no competition, you probably don't have a business. In fact, you don't have a business at all because, competition then helps you understand how things go and work. Because very few real trailblazers buy something that nobody's ever seen before. They buy it because it compares to something else. So that gets me to what is that number one thing? How does that fit? And that is, where do you fit in the market? How are you positioned and what does that mean to be positioned in the market? And then how do you really explain what you are doing and how you're doing it? So what does everybody miss? That was the next question that comes about. What they miss is that, see, positioning isn't a wannabe thing. I want to be the best, whatever. I want to be this. I want to be that. Now we can project that. We have to have a message. We're not just a cork floating in the ocean, though some people are just bobbing up and down, bobbing up and down. And I looked at it and said, well, yeah, okay. What people are missing is that you have to define what you do and how you do it and why you should be acknowledged to do whatever it is you're going to do. And that definition, that definitization process is important because you have to do that to then figure out where it all fits into the world that exists. Now, does it mean that there aren't new vistas opening up every day and new things that are happening? But I'm talking about if you're going to get to some kind of long term, gonna make money, going to do what I wanted to do, going to satisfy needs and wants and desires of customers. So what everyone misses is that, you know, you got to take that idea that you think is pretty decent and you got to hammer it. You got to forge it. You have to be like when the Japanese sword makers make a samurai sword, a real one, and they keep pounding the metal and folding it over and pounding it until this thing is razor sharp and can hold an edge and all of that. That's essential. So everybody misses, not everybody, well, yeah, everybody misses this. I do too, because you get excited. Because the keystone lesson is once you have that, now where do I fit in the market? Where is my round peg going into that round hole that really exists already or will exist because of what I'm going to do? And that's really important because this means that we have to understand our competitors, understand the landscape, understand where we fit in the cycle of, the adoption cycle, and all of those things matter to eventually how successful you're going to be. So what was the mistake they made in the first 300 seconds? Well, they picked something, they said this is unique and special and all of that, and yet they had no way to really grasp the position that they were trying to hit. Fuzzy positions don't work. Look at all of the failed automobile brands. Fuzzy. Nobody knew what they stood for or why they stood for whoever they were standing for. And you see all of the money that was spent trying to get these people to think, yeah, well, maybe we're this or maybe we're that until they died. Now, I know out there you're probably saying, but, John, what about AI? Doesn't AI change all of these things? And I'm going to tell you, AI is astonishingly powerful. It is a great leverage. But the question is it the world's greatest expansion or is it the most destructive force for your universe? See, if you don't know how you're positioned and then you don't take that and then use AI, then I think you're making. But the reality of it is that you absolutely must have a well-defined position and make that position work, and then utilize AI. So the reality is that you must know your position, where you fit in the marketplace, and then use AI to help you tone, build, bolster, expose competitors, drive things out, do it better than you ever did it before. But it all comes down to that central, that key piece, which is you have to know your positioning. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, and this is a teaser for the future, which is there is coming an AI tsunami. And if you're thinking tsunami is a good thing, I don't know anybody who's ever been slammed by a tsunami has really come out and said, wow, that was a wild ride. That was fantastic. But there's an AI tsunami coming, and it's coming soon. We always thought it was 2024. We thought it was 25. Looks like it's going to be by the end of 26 and sometime in 27. But that's going to drive a lot of businesses right down the drain on what you want to do in preparation. Because while you're learning about AI, when you're getting better about AI, when you're doing all those things, go pick up my book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to win. Position to win is the most important aspect of it. You can get this at any physical bookstore like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, or your local, location, and say, "Got to get this book. This guy, Dr. Speed Selling Mendoza, talked about it. Got to get it." Or you can get it digitally on Kindle, Nook, Apple iBooks. So I'm going to wrap up by saying 6 years went by very quickly. I keep working in this arena because no matter how you slice it, no matter how you look at it, positioning is the most important thing you can do for every single business, because the bias that is in the head of every prospect that will ever exist for you already knows too much about the market and too little about you. And with that, I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This has been Raging Verbalist number 321. Go out there and have a great one. And on March 17th, maybe tip a glass, hold a cheer, have a smile, because yes, my book is now 6 years old.